Hey everybody, Eric Dieterding here. Hope all is well. Hope you enjoyed the lecture on refocusing. Today in this video, we're going to run through the blur gallery and reiterate some things we had in the lecture so you can practice. Again, keyword practice in your skills practice above, and kind of refine some of your blurring skills here. So let's take a look at some of these images I have open. We'll start with this camper van, and the first thing I like to do is duplicate my background. Control or Command J. I'm going to go up here into Filter and Blur Gallery. We're going to start off with the Fill Blur. I'm going to run through basically all of these. You should have seen some examples and demonstrations in the lecture or some of the extra tutorial videos, so I won't spend too much time here. Just kind of want to go through some of the tips and tricks we might want you to learn while you're practicing in your skills practice. So if we go into the iris blur here, you should have already realized what allows you to move your blur and what doesn't. So I'm going to grab in the center here and look at my little slider wheel to change the blur. I'm going to not go so harsh so I can make it look realistic. I just want to go up and down, and you should too, to see really what it does. You know, where is your breaking point, I guess, for lack of a better word. You can change where the blur begins and ends inside of your radius. You can change the size here. So you can see it gets blurry around these points. Like it starts getting softer. If you bring it all the way to the edge, it might look a little too harsh, too quick. So keeping it a little further from the outside of the radius will make it look a little more realistic, a little more gradual. So I'm going to change the size, and you see this oval here may not be working for my non-oval camper van. So if you go ahead and grab this point, you can change it to a little rounded rectangle, whatever size you think works best for your object. Because as you see here, once we kind of get in here, I'm okay with this blur, I think. You could change your slider wheel to whatever works for you. If I turn it, let's hide that. Let's turn it. Let's see. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe a little more? I'll do a little more. Do a little tiny bit more. And we're going to go up here to the options bar and press OK. So, there we go. See, slight blur. Nothing too crazy. I like to make it look realistic. You can go ahead and go as far as you want to make it look aesthetically pleasing for you. But I see here and here, when I undo it and go back and forth, when it's blurred, I have these pieces here all the way in the background that should look blurry. If we were taking a photograph of this, everything here in the foreground would be in focus and everything in the back would be nice and softly out of focus like we just made. So I might want to try something else to get that going. So I'll just turn that layer off, duplicate the background again, go back into our blur gallery, and let's go into field blur. So you're not going to just take one of these. You're going to probably add another pin here. I'm thinking I'm going to turn my blur all the way down on the camper van and go ahead and add points around it. So that where I had that same problem here, I'm going to go and make sure I connect it with my field blur as close as I can. And maybe it's a matter of moving these back and forth so you see the edge of my van here, depending on how little your blur is on the wheel and how far apart they all are from your pins. I'll bring all these down to 8 so it's not so blurry. Kind of what I like field blur for. You can add as many pins as you want, as long as your computer can handle it and doesn't crash, of course, so that you can get up to every edge. So let's say if I come down all the way here and something up here wasn't getting blurred, you just add another one and you can match all the numbers so that it all looks the same. Let's hide those. I'm just going to hold H to hide those so I can see without them. I think up here too is like the preview. You can go on and off, but the bars are there unless you turn them off with Control H. or just hold H. So it's still blurry on my van, so I might want to bring it a little closer up here, but I think after that I'm going to press OK. So I shouldn't spend too much time on this demonstration video, because it is a lot of moving back and forth. As long as you learn how, from the lecture and from this demonstration video, how the tools work, you should be able to find out in your practice what works best for you, and each image is going to be different. And you'll see that after I run through the next example as well. So I'm going to just turn that off again and create another background copy. Then we're going to go into filter and back into our blur gallery. Before you leave this image, you also have the option to do tilt shift, which is a cool camera lens trick to make things look miniature, as defined in the lecture. So again, you have a bunch of sliders and you can rotate where you want it to go. Same idea with moving these closer to the edge and making the blur too harsh. Find out whatever looks realistic in an unreal way is what you're going to want to look for here. I don't think this is going to work for this image, so I do have another image here, and you guessed it, it's the one called Tilt Shift City. So I'm going to cancel out of that, and we'll wait on Tilt Shift and explore the rest of the blur gallery for a quick second. So I'm going to go in and do spin blur, and I'm going to use these on the tires, and again I'm going to add a couple different points. I'm going to go down as small as I can here with my little circle. Similar to how tilt shift isn't going to work for every option, your spin blur might not work for every option. So simply, like we did in the lecture, you can make something like a propeller or a wheel spin. I'm going to stick with the car because I want to do something fun to the car. Again, watch how far you go with the blur to make it look as realistic as possible. I'm going to keep it pretty blurred out so that we can see the example when I zoom back out. So I get what number we're on here, about 75. Let's do 75 degrees for our spin. And that'll be close enough. You should have a slider wheel too that you can type into. That'll help you keep your numbers together. So with just that in my picture, it doesn't really work to show movement in the car. The wheels are moving, but everything else is so perfectly still. Even the reflection, you might add some radial blur if you have reflections. So I'm going to stay in the blur gallery on the same image and go into path blur. Path blur should be able to help show us some motion. And again, same with everything else. You can add extra points. I'm going to go ahead and drag one over the car and drag one out over here. So the difference is whatever you like. Again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take this all the way down over my car and do the best I can to keep that blur out of the car, to make it maybe look like, with the wheels moving, that we captured it and everything else is moving. If that doesn't look realistic, let's go back in there and blur that out. Again, the car is moving, so maybe that should be blurred and not the background. And we'll take everything else down. And there you have it. Fast-moving camper van captured on a wet road. And now see, you don't even notice the reflection isn't spinning because we have that path blur over the entire car. So see what works here. Maybe the clouds and the road being blurred out and that vertical line doesn't work. But try it out. See what happens. And I hope this helps. I'm going to go into the next couple images here to work on the other two options that we skipped over and didn't use on this image for blurred.